Hello and welcome back to another episode of the English Education Lab podcast, the podcast on all things English language learning with your host, Carolina. So today we are going to be diving deep into a topic that I've wanted to cover for a very long time. It's something that affects most language learners and certainly the majority of my students. It is the fear of speaking in English and what you can do about it. The fear of speaking in English is definitely a universal struggle, right up there with forgetting someone's name immediately after they introduce themselves. Whether you're preparing for a job interview, nervously unmuting yourself in an online English class, or just trying to order a coffee, the fear of making mistakes, being misunderstood, or judged can feel overwhelming. But what causes this fear? And more importantly, how can you kick it to the curb? So let's dive in and uncover some practical strategies to help you speak with confidence right here, right now. So first of all, let's take a look at the reasons behind the fear of speaking in English. This can stem from various sources, but recognizing the root cause of this fear is the very first step in addressing it effectively. That goes with everything else in life. In order to actually work on a problem, you need to know why it's there in the first place. So let's take a look at what I consider to be the 7 main reasons most people have a fear of speaking in English when it's their second language. The first and most obvious one is fear of making mistakes. One of the biggest reasons people fear speaking in English is the worry of messing up. Whether it's a grammar slip, a mispronounced word, or accidentally saying something completely different from what you intended, and we've all been there before, this fear comes from the idea that you have to be perfect when speaking a second language. But the truth is, no one speaks flawlessly all the time, not even native speakers. Still, many learners hesitate, afraid their mistakes will lead to awkward moments or even worse, judgment. And that fear can be so strong and so overwhelming that it stops them from speaking at all. The second reason is lack of confidence. A lack of confidence in your language skills is another big reason for hesitation. If you feel like your vocabulary is limited or your grammar could use some work, you might hold back, worrying that others will judge you. It's that little voice in your head saying, "What if I sound silly?" This self-doubt often comes from comparing yourself to others who seem more fluent or effortlessly articulate, making you feel like you're always one step behind. But guess what? Even the most fluent speakers fumble their words sometimes. We all do. The third reason is negative past experiences. So a bad experience like being laughed at or having someone correct you in, let's just say, a not so nice way can stick with you for a long time. It's like tripping in public. You replay it in your head 100 times, even though everyone else has already moved on. These moments can create something of a mental block, making you extra cautious or even scared to speak English at all. For many, just the thought of going through that embarrassment again is enough to bring on a wave of anxiety. But the truth is, one awkward moment does not define your ability. It's just part of the learning process, and it's something that we should embrace. Another reason, cultural or social pressure. In many cultures, speaking correctly, especially in formal settings, is a big deal. The pressure to sound polished and articulate can make speaking in English feel like walking a tightrope, where one small mistake might make you look less educated or professional. It's that feeling of wanting to contribute to a conversation, but overthinking every word, worry that you'll mix up advice and advise, or accidentally say something that doesn't quite land right. When social norms set high expectations, even a simple introduction or a work meeting can feel like a high-stakes performance. No wonder so many people hesitate to speak up, right? Another reason, performance anxiety. The fear of speaking English is a lot like stage fright. You suddenly feel like all eyes, and ears in this case, are on you, and the pressure to get it right can be overwhelming. Your mind goes blank, your words get jumbled, and somehow, even the smallest, simplest sentence feels impossible to say. This is especially true in nerve-wracking situations like job interviews, presentations, or speaking in front of a group. It's as if your brain decides to take a coffee break right when you need it the most. Another reason is limited practice opportunities. And this is a big one, my friends. If you don't get enough chances to practice speaking in English, the fear only grows. It's like trying to ride a bike, but never actually getting on one. Of course, it's going to feel intimidating. So without regular exposure to real conversations, English can start to feel very unfamiliar, like a puzzle you're not sure how to put together. And the worst part, it turns into a vicious cycle. Fear stops you from practicing, and not practicing makes you even more afraid to try. Now, we also have one last one that I believe affects many, if not most, of my ESL students: overthinking and perfectionism. So some learners just get stuck overthinking every word, trying to craft the perfect sentence before they even open their mouths. It's like drafting a text message in your head, but never truly hitting send. This habit not only slows down conversations, but also really cranks up the anxiety, so that by the time you're ready to speak, the moment has already passed. And the truth is, aiming for perfection can actually make speaking harder, turning what should be a natural exchange into a high-pressure test. And nobody wants that. So now that we've gone over some of the reasons behind a fear of speaking in English, let's take a look at how to combat the fear of speaking in English. Now, it is not insurmountable, okay? With consistent effort, self-compassion, and the right strategies, I promise you can build confidence and ease your anxiety. But there are some very concrete steps you can take, and this is what I want to go over with you right now. First and foremost, you need to shift your mindset. Let me say that again. You have to shift your mindset. Remind yourself that making mistakes is completely normal. It's exactly how we learn. Even native speakers slip up, mix words, or forget what they were saying mid-sentence. Instead of stressing about being perfect, focus on getting your message across. The real purpose of a language, one way or another, is not to impress people with flawless grammar. It's to connect, share ideas, and have conversations that really matter. So speak up and don't let a few mistakes hold you back. It might be useful for you to remember that with anything in life, whether you are trying to learn an instrument, a new sport, a new skill, there is a learning curve. You are going to make mistakes, but that's exactly how you learn. So embrace the experience of making mistakes. Try and let go of that fear. Now, another big one, practice speaking regularly. Again, I cannot emphasize this enough. Practice is the secret weapon for conquering your fear of speaking in English. I want you to hold on to that thought. So let's take a look at some fun and easy ways to squeeze in a little bit more speaking practice. You can try finding a language buddy who's eager to learn your native language, and you can help each other out while practicing English. It's like a language swap meet. There are plenty of language exchange apps out there, making it very, very easy to find the right person for the task. There are also multiple speaking apps, platforms like Cambly or HelloTalk, which are perfect for chatting with native speakers. Plus, you get the chance to practice real conversations without the pressure. You can also try, and don't laugh, solo practice. Yes, talk to yourself in English, narrate your day, or even practice in front of a mirror. It might feel a little bit weird at first, but it's a great way to boost your confidence. So what do we mean by narrate your day? When you're at home on your own, narrate your day by telling the mirror or yourself out loud what you're doing. I'm about to make a cup of coffee. I'm putting a little bit of sugar in my coffee. I'm drinking my coffee. It might sound silly at first, but I promise you, this is a very good way of boosting your confidence with very little stress and very little pressure involved. Now, of course, another way of helping yourself is actually taking online English classes. Join a spoken English course online and get the chance to practice with a pro. Plus, you'll get feedback that's tailored just for you. So no more guessing if you're doing it right. When I work with my ESL students online, I always pinpoint where their strengths are as well as their weaknesses, so they know exactly where and how they can work on these weaknesses. Another thing you can do is help yourself build your vocabulary and grammar gradually. Building up your vocabulary and fine-tuning your grammar can really give you a confidence boost. Don't stress about mastering every single word in the dictionary overnight. Instead, focus on learning phrases and sentences that will actually come in handy in your day-to-day life. Start there. Think about situations where you'll use English the most, whether that's ordering coffee, chatting with a colleague, or talking to friends. You'll feel a lot more prepared and less overwhelmed when you know exactly what to say. From there, you can build up into different situations. For example, going to the supermarket, being at the airport. If business English is the direction you're heading in, vocabulary words used in meetings. Another tip is listen and imitate. Listening to native speakers is a great way to get used to the natural flow and pronunciation of English. You can watch movies, listen to podcasts, or follow YouTube channels in English. Whatever feels fun. And that's a big one here. Make sure whatever it is you're listening to or consuming, it actually speaks to you. You will be much more likely to stick to it if it's something that you enjoy. Don't be afraid to repeat what you hear or even try out a new accent, even just for laughs. This kind of practice helps you get comfortable with the language, and I promise you, before you know it, you'll be speaking more naturally too. You can also break the ice with simple conversations. Start with the basics rather than jumping into big, complicated topics. Begin with simple, everyday conversations. You can practice things like ordering food at a restaurant, asking for directions, or introducing yourself. These little wins will add up and help you build confidence one conversation at a time. You can also join supportive communities. Participating in communities where you can practice English without fear of judgment can be immensely helpful. Online forums, language learning groups, or even social media groups can provide a safe environment for you to grow your skills. You can even join English Education Lab's Facebook group, which is an excellent place to connect with fellow learners. Another tip, record yourself speaking. Recording your voice while speaking in English can be a game changer for improvement. This is something that I often share with my students, and I wish more of them would really try this out. I know it might feel a bit strange at first, but when you listen back to it, you can pinpoint areas to work on and see how much you've improved over time. Plus, hearing your own voice speaking English will help you get used to it, making you actually feel less self-conscious the next time you speak. Think of it like practicing for a big game. You get better every time. Now, of course, another tip is to learn how to manage anxiety. I know this is a little bit more difficult, but it definitely bears mentioning. A fear of speaking in English often comes hand in hand with anxiety, but don't worry. We've got tips for you here too. Relaxation techniques like deep breathing or mindfulness can really work wonders to calm those nerves before you speak. If the idea of speaking in front of a crowd makes you want to hide under the table, start by practicing in just low pressure situations, like with a friend or in a small group or maybe with your teacher. Slowly work your way up, and before you know it, speaking in English will feel a lot less intimidating. You also want to seek constructive feedback. Feedback is key to getting better, but it's important to get it from people who are supportive and actually know what they're talking about. A great teacher or mentor will help you improve without making you feel uncomfortable. They should be your cheerleaders. So be open to corrections. They are part of the process after all, but try to focus more on how far you've come rather than stressing about the mistakes you've made along the way. Setting realistic goals, another big one. Set small, achievable goals that can keep you motivated and on track. I say this over and over again to whoever will listen. So, for example, try learning 5 new phrases every week or have a 10-minute chat in English each day. Celebrate those little victories, whether it's using a new phrase or just feeling more confident. Each step forward helps you build a positive mindset, and it makes speaking English feel so much more natural. general. Now, of course, this list would be incomplete without mentioning technology. So yes, we live in the tech era. Use it to your advantage. Leverage language learning tools and apps that focus on speaking skills. Many apps include pronunciation guides, conversation practice, and interactive exercises that can help you overcome the fear of speaking in English in a low-pressure environment. Finally, remember that learning a language is more of a journey than a finish line. It's okay if progress feels slow sometimes. It's not a linear process. Just remember that every small step you take gets you closer to speaking English with confidence. Be patient with yourself and trust that with time you will get there, because you will. Remember also that consistency is absolutely key. Small steps, but consistent steps will yield huge results. Now, if tackling the fear of speaking in English feels like just too much to handle on your own, I totally get that. Getting some professional guidance can make a world of difference. So virtual ESL classes like the ones that I offer at English Education Lab are all about supporting you and working toward your personal goals. So whether it's improving your business communication, feeling more comfortable in everyday conversations, or preparing for an exam, having a professional teacher by your side can really boost your confidence and help you succeed. Now, the fear of speaking in English might feel like a mountain to climb, I know, but trust me, it is not as steep as it looks. So by understanding why you're afraid and using some practical strategies like the ones I mentioned above, you can and will break through that anxiety and start feeling more confident about speaking. And let's be honest, every time you speak in English, even if it's a little rough around the edges, you're making progress. So keep at it. With persistence, practice, and a positive mindset, I know you'll soon be chatting in English like it's your second nature. I hope this episode was extremely helpful to you. Please let me know what you thought about it and if you have any more tips to add to that list. In the meantime, I wish you all a wonderful day or evening wherever in the world you might be.